What is up, true believers? The eternal truth. The eternal truth. The eternal truth. The eternal truth behind our modern mythology.
What is up, true believers? It's Mason here with Comics and Crosses, where we discuss the eternal truths behind our modern mythology. And today is Monday, January 24th. Thank you for joining me this Monday morning. I'm hoping to just have a fun time chatting about comics, stuff that I read this weekend, and what's coming up this week. It's going to be a good one. January is almost near the end here, and I hope you've had a good start to your year. I think comics-wise, it's been a good start to the year. There's been some good stuff coming out. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, at Comics and Crosses is my IG handle. And maybe I shared on Twitter too, but I got a big haul this past week. If you don't know, a haul, let's see, haul definition. Okay, so the definition of a haul in comic book world is a stack of comics that you have got from the comic book shop, and you can get a haul from arrive in the mail, or you can just go out hunting. It can be your new comic book day haul, hashtag NCBD, any of these things. So I'd like my show to be friendly to people who are perhaps new to comics, so just thought I'd drop in that little description. So yes, so I got a great big haul this week, including two things that came in the mail. I had missed out on Robin and Batman issue 2, so I thought I'd get this cool variant cover of that 3-part prestige format from Lemire Nguyen, which was actually ended up being a really cool story. This issue was kind of a little more fun, kind of departed from the actual core story that we were talking about, but it came back to it in issue 3, and so that was neat. I mean, I like when stories fill in the gaps of Batman's continuity and timeline. So seeing things like Dick's early years as Robin, pretty cool. Seeing that beginning, that kind of uncertain, to see some real emotion from Batman, from Bruce, was pretty cool. If you haven't read it, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But it was a good story. I'd recommend picking it up if you can get the collection or track down the issues. Speaking of filling in gaps in Batman Bruce's continuity, also out this week was Batman the Knight. So this is from Chip Zdarsky with art from Carmine. Let me see if I can say his name right. Di Giandomenico. Something like that. So, so great art in this book. Great writing. I haven't finished it. I started it, but within a page or two, I was like, oh man, this is an instant classic. It's a 10-part maxi. I guess, can you call that maxi series? Talking about just exploring the time frame before Bruce becomes the Batman. So, which may seem like, hey, that there's no, he doesn't get suited up. Is it really that good? But yeah, so the writer, Chip Zdarsky, has been killing it on Daredevil. Really cool storyline, taking Daredevil deeper into some of his motivations and thinking. So I was super excited. I would have skipped this book if it was not Chip Zdarsky. If I heard, something exploring Batman's early years, I would have thought, nah, whatever, But like I say, he's been killing it on Daredevil. And Daredevil and Batman, are kind of similar characters. I guess they can get compared in the sense that they are like, well, I was going to say have no superpowers, but Daredevil kind of does. But they're street level heroes. So they're both very dark, kind of. Batman's certainly darker, more brooding. Daredevil's kind of just always in a funk. It feels like um, he's always kind of down. Whereas Bruce Wayne, Batman, I think is always kind of just pissed off. So they're a little different in that way. Something that I've actually been wanting to talk about for a long time is who's better, Daredevil or Batman? Now, that may seem like a strange question. Batman is certainly more popular. He sells the majority of DC Comics books, but Daredevil also had a really cool Netflix series that was super popular that some still consider the greatest comic book TV show to date. Now that's, left to people's opinion, but who is better? Let's compare them. So Batman, let's talk about why Batman is Batman, his motivation. Batman had his parents brutally murdered in front of him as a child, and was so impacted, as you might imagine, by the trauma and by the fear and devastation inflicted on him by a criminal that he sought to eliminate crime, to fight crime, in order to protect people who were being affected in the same way. Now, there's a lot you can get into in Batman's world of, well, his escalation of the fight against crime maybe even led to the escalation of super or freak villains. If you go back to Year One, Long Halloween type language, freak villains versus just mobsters and gangsters. And so, but then you take Daredevil and you take his motivations, and Daredevil, let's see, he was blinded in an accident, but also given super heightened senses. So he actually has an ability. So whereas Batman chose a path, maybe out of anger, out of trauma, chose to do something without necessarily being capable first. He certainly had a lot of resources, being wealthy and powerful, but as a boy, no, he was, wealthy, but maybe not powerful. And he made himself such. So, which is kind of, he earned it a little more. But Daredevil kind of has that Spider-Man, great power, great responsibility kind of edge to him. So, because Daredevil had an accident, he was imbued with these powers, these abilities, these heightened senses. And then he also trained himself on top of that. So that one's kind of a toss-up. That's kind of comes down to opinion. Do you like that Bruce took it upon himself to wage this war against crime? Or is it more dynamic? Is that the simplicity of that better than the dynamic nature of being imbued with power and then taking it upon yourself to be responsible? I don't know. That's a difference in Daredevil versus Batman. Okay. And then the other thing is I think Batman's rogues gallery definitely wins out. It's probably be a better comparison to compare Batman's villains versus Spidey's villains. Both of those characters, super iconic, probably top selling characters from each brand, DC, Marvel, from the big two. But they both have really cool villains, really iconic villains that have shown up in movies and TV shows and cartoons and things like that. Whereas Daredevil, he has, now Daredevil has been around for many years, probably since the 60s, I believe. So he's certainly fought his share of villains and has a lot of them. But in terms of like truly iconic villains, I think Elektra, who's like his kind of Catwoman, is more, you know, um, is not so much a villain, but she's probably the most popular like Daredevil side character. Um, and if you compare her to Catwoman, I'd say that's a draw there. They're very different. Catwoman very much fits in Batman's world, Selena Kyle does, and then Elektra really fits in Daredevil's kind of more um, ninja side of things. That's another thing is Daredevil kind of leans more on the ninja side, Batman more on the detective, crime fighting, vigilante side. Well, yeah. Okay, so I'm really breaking this down here, but I'm trying to lay out a lot of comparison, and you decide. You can let me know in the chat if you're watching this on a replay or whatever. Who do you prefer, Daredevil versus Batman? Now, one thing though is Bruce Batman is really motivated by vengeance, um, and Daredevil is kind of more motivated by right and wrong. I would say he's a lawyer. He really is strongly impressed upon his mind the sense of justice. He is Catholic. He is devoutly Catholic. So he has a real sense of right and wrong and of judgment from God. So of God judging the wrongdoings of others. Whereas Batman is more so angry, vengeful, I guess seeking justice, but he's kind of more he is keeping himself from the line of killing people. Like he doesn't allow himself to do it versus Daredevil genuinely does not want to kill anybody, I feel like, except for maybe Bullseye. So yeah, which going back to his villains, Daredevil has Bullseye. He has who to comic book fans is pretty iconic, but I think outside of the world of comic book fans, Bullseye is not super. The Netflix show really helped up his kind of notoriety, and I really wish they would have came back for another season to see a fully realized psycho Bullseye versus Daredevil. Just what little they had in season 3 of Daredevil was pretty incredible. I loved it, but yeah, so Kingpin has become really iconic. I think the show has really launched, and the brilliant performance of Vincent D'Onofrio has really catapulted Kingpin in the eyes of many as far as villains. And so, so I'm kind of all over the page here, but I think they're dark, kind of brooding characters. They're similar in that, but you know what? I think that Matt Murdock kind of has more of a Spidey-like purity to him, where he feels a burden to do the right thing, and I think that's more. I think there's a greater purity to Matt Murdock, to Daredevil, that makes him feel more like a hero than Batman. Even though Batman is, I think the first thing you think about when you think about Batman is, oh, Batman's cool. He's the coolest superhero. He's dark. He's intimidating. He's got all these cool gadgets. But Matt Murdock is unlike Bruce, is not motivated by just this unresolved anger, trauma, and sense of vengeance. I think he's just a fighter. I think he's a conflicted fighter. Matt Murdock is a conflicted fighter at heart. His dad was a boxer. And he has these great abilities, these great heightened senses that compel him to do something. I mean, there's a lot of scenes in the comics where Matt is sitting there listening to the city and listening for sounds of things happening and responding to them. And whereas, Batman's just different. You just feel almost sorry for him. Now I know. Now I'm a huge Batman fan, so I'm not really trying to crap on Batman. I'm just trying to lay out a different way of thinking about it. I think that Batman is just miserable. He just always seems miserable. You see his relationships with Batman's relationship with Robin, with any of his Robins, with the other heroes. It's just very broken. He can't really come out and share his emotions. He's just this stunted child that grew up with a tremendous amount of trauma that never got dealt with, other than to go around the world and become a crime fighting machine. So, but I mean, Matt Murdock went to college, he became a lawyer, he's contributing to his society. Whereas Batman, Bruce Wayne, his true self is Batman. His true self wants to be out there punching bad guys in the face and trying to put an end to people who harm other people because he's been traumatized. In his real life, Bruce Wayne just goes around and gives money to stuff and like pretends to date supermodels and whatever, pretends to party it up. But Matt is not that way. So when I put it that way, who's better? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Who do you prefer? Daredevil? Who is the better hero, the more compelling hero? Daredevil or Batman? And not talking about the villains, because I think Batman takes that one easily. His villains are the coolest. He's got the Joker, Mr. Freeze, Two-Face. I mean, all kinds of, the list goes on. And Matt, he has some cool villains too. I mean, he fights the Hand. It's kind of a different situation, and he's got some cool companions too. Actually, let's talk about this. Batman's Bat Family versus Daredevil's defender type companions, like Iron Fist, like Luke Cage. He's kind of got a cool crew. And the cool thing about that is they're equals. Versus Batman, he works with the Justice League, maybe, and even then he thinks he can take them all down if he needs to. But Batman's Bat Family, he like regularly employs children to to fight these crazy villains and stuff, because he is a traumatized child, and his way of doing better is actually to lead them into the same like self-destructive, crazy, dangerous kind of path that he went on. So that's kind of a trip, and I don't know that I necessarily recommend it. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Daredevil versus Batman. Which one is the better hero? Very different, very similar, yet different. Those are my thoughts. And before we get out of here, let us talk about what is coming out this week. New comics this week. Let's see. And what I'm going to be picking up, books I'm most excited about, and maybe what you guys might be picking up. So this week we got Devil's Reign issue 3. So speaking of Daredevil, that whole storyline that Zdarsky's been writing in there has led to a big event called Devil's Reign. That's going on right now. I'm hearing that it's the conclusion of Zdarsky's run, but I hope not. But we shall see. Also, Action Comics, the War World saga with Superman and Action Comics continues. That has been super dynamic and interesting. I hope you guys are reading it. If not, I highly recommend it. It's a really interesting pushing on the boundaries of what's valuable to Clark Kent, Superman, his values, his motivations, and really challenging him in interesting ways. Really, it's the circumstances are really highlighting what makes Superman Superman. And I think it's a great story. I think Philip Kennedy Johnson really gets Superman, and he's writing a definitive story that is highlighting who Superman is. It's been great to have him on, somebody who doesn't hate the character or is just trying to update the character for modern times or whatever. Also, we got Ordinary Gods coming out from Image Comics, issue 7 this week. So I've been following that story. Interesting kind of reincarnated gods kind of weird thing. That one's good. Robin actually has been consistently really good from Joshua Williamson. I think it's starting a new storyline now after this whole Mortal Kombat thing. And Thor has just gotten interesting. So we'll see what goes down with Thor. Doesn't look like I have any indie books on my pull this week, but Flash is coming out. Ordinary Gods, I guess, is indie. It's from Image. So, but let me know what are you guys checking out? What are you guys pulling this week? What are you excited for? And I hope that you all have a great week out there. Oh, Aggressively, what's up, dude? Had a good conversation about Batman versus Daredevil here, and just talking about what I'm pulling this week. So I hope you guys have a great week. It's going to be a good one. God bless y'all. I will be back on Wednesday for some more comic book talk.